Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We've reached the end of the Blueprint series for the iconic Jay-Z. As you kids know, we took our review of the Blueprint 3 and split it up as a two-parter. Good thing we did, because that sucker was 2 hours, okay? But in order to make this happen and make it seem extraordinarily seamless, as we try to do here on the 6M, I'm doing this voiceover just to give you guys out there a heads up, let you know what's going down. If you are keeping up, and you better be taking notes, because I'll be taking names if you're not, okay? Be forewarned. If you are playing along and keeping up, then you know that part 1 of the Blueprint 3, our review here, contained the first 8 songs. So be sure you've gone back and listened to that episode first. Yes, it's in the archives. We released that one before this one. Of course we did. And in this episode, you get the last 7 songs. So when next you hear the sultry tones of your host, I will be diving headfirst into the remaining 7 songs of the Blueprint 3. Enjoy the episode, kids. Let us know what you think. And as always, thanks for supporting us here on the 6M podcast. And without any further ado, here's the Blueprint 3, part 2. All right, kids. So that takes us to track number 9. This is A Star Is Born. It clocks in at 3 minutes, 48 seconds. Kanye, again, is on the production along with No ID and Kino. And this song also features J. Cole. Interesting mix, and we're going to get into it here. I'll go ahead and give you my take, Phil, and then I'll see what you think about this. I actually really like this song. I like the hook, the clap form. I don't know if it irritates some people. I go back to that line a lot with Jay because, well, it's not just Jay. It's a lot of hip hop, and to be honest, it's a lot of rock too. You get a riff, or you'll get one certain chorus, and you just loop that over and over and over again. But it doesn't irritate me at all. I really enjoy this song. I don't think I ever skipped this song. I like the instrumentation of it. I like the composition. I like everything about it. What's your take on A Star Is Born? Do you like this?
Yeah, I really like Star Is Born, and I feel like it's a big part of the messaging of the album. Of well, Jay has been there and done that with this trilogy, and not just the trilogy of the Blueprint, but just his career. He's been such a instrumental part of hip hop for the past few decades, and so I feel like he knows what his place is in the space, and it's not just so much him, letting people know that he's the best and reminding people, how important his career is, but reminding people, that he actually loves hip hop and that he, wants to go over, and give other guys in hip hop their flowers. And I think a good part of this song is him going through and going over guys in hip hop history that have also made an impact and giving them their flowers. And then at the end of the song, giving a new guy in J. Cole his space to, say I'm here now and make a statement. I think that's really great. One of the funniest things I think about this song every time I listen to it is that he's going through all these people, all this list of guys, and making all these nods to things in hip hop, and then he couldn't help himself. He had to throw a jab at Prodigy in the first, where he's like, Prodigy took it too far, can't fuck with Brooklyn. It's like, all right, had to go back and take a shot at him. I was gonna say, other than that, I don't even mind that. I do think the song is really good. I think J. Cole's verse is very good, and I'm a Cole fan. I think his first album came around the same time, and to just see how far he's come as an artist it's impressive.
Yeah, he really adds to this song. And the story goes is that he got a phone call from somebody else saying that Jay wanted him on this track. So the whole time in the studio, apparently this guy is, I don't want to say nervous, but like it's a very surreal moment for him because he's in the studio with Jay, who requested he be there. and to be on this track. I mean, what a moment that must have been for this guy. And he signed with not Rockefeller, but Rock Nation after. I didn't really follow this guy after the fact. What did he do? I mean, what did he get into after this? Do you know?
I mean, he's probably one of the most well liked rappers of his generation. I feel like when you look at what people perceive to be the top three of his generation, it's him, Kendrick, and Drake. Probably, I feel like those are people's holy trinity of rap from his generation.
I mean, I knew he kept going. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just never stuck with him.
Oh yeah, he's got a huge following.
Wow.
He's a he's a top star. I feel like right now.
And of course, I mean, he could point back to this and say, "Hey, if not for Jay, kind of put me on the map." Um, but
He
to your
he
point, go ahead.
he has this very cool song off of his first studio album, and it has Jay in an interview, and he uses it at the beginning of the song, and it's Jay saying, um, there's some kid somewhere eating his cereal, and in between eating his cereal, he's writing some dope bars, and he was like, "I'm gonna sign that kid. I don't want no problems with him." And he goes into this great. It's just such a good song. It's such a good way of referencing Jay, and so yeah, Jay has had his fingerprints all over J. Cole's career in some ways.
That's pretty cool. But to your point about this song, you're right. It's about Jay sort of shouting out everyone who's been a star in the rap game while he's been in it. And the sort of the whole point of the song here is that everybody has had his time to shine and fade. Jay's been the only constant. I think we could all agree with that one. Guys came and went, and Jay stayed the course. He's given props throughout the song. He's also underscoring how great he is, as any good MC should. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, you respect the competition, but you also remind everybody, yeah, but I'm still the best there is.
yeah. There is a bit of narcissism to go through all these people and give them credit for their work, but also to come out and go, yeah, but by the way, my star has never faded.
Right.
But I mean, I get it. I get the messaging behind it, and I do think there is some good intention behind it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the intention is there, but a friendly reminder of who we're talking about here is rapping this tune. Um, the sample here is from Mother Freedom's "Touch Me," and I don't know if I know that tune, but if I heard it independent of this, I may remember it. I don't know, but when I first heard "A Star Is Born," the sample did not come to me at all. Um, and it's cool because LeBron even gave Jay a shout out, and it was let's see, Cleveland Cavs won the 2016 NBA Finals, and he shouted out Jay after the deal, saying that "Star Is Born" was sort of his inspiration. Said that he always listened to it. What do you think about Jay's performance on this track specifically?
I think that he's pretty good on here. I like I said, I really like the second verse where he's doing all the nods to other hip hop artists that he respected. Um, I really like it. I really like his verses on.
Does fame in this game have to change who you are, or could I be the same one who came from a faraway life just to make it in these Broadway lights? Now I'm shining the broad daylight. Go figure. A slow transition from a little broke from the Ville, got a deal, real life saver. I like his stuff on this.
Yeah, I really liked his flow on the verse. I thought J Cole brought a really good verse here. Um, it is interesting just watching that Jay is kind of not. He's not the hungry guy on this. Like he's not where he came from at the beginning of his career. And watching other
Mhm.
guys get on this album with the hunger that Jay started with, like I'm gonna outperform Jay on this song. And there were several guys on this album that tried to outperform Jay. Like
Yeah,
we talked about earlier, how I felt like Jeezy in some ways stole the show on As Real as It Gets.
he
And I feel
totally
like
did.
I feel like Cole tries to on this song because his verse is very good.
Yeah, he totally did. Jeezy totally ruled. He ruled that song. But yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing here. I mean, as I said, this is not a skip for me. We haven't gotten to your skip yet, have we? I've been in suspense. Well, let's go ahead and keep trucking and see if we get to the skip sooner rather than later. Track number 10 is Venus versus Mars. This is Timbaland back on the production with J Rock. And this one comes in at 3 minutes, 10 seconds. This is the second to shortest track on the album, if I'm not mistaken. It is second to shortest track. I am back and forth on this one. I don't really, I can't say it's a skip, but it's not always one I listen to all the way through, which denotes it's a skip, but it's not. Before we dive into it, what's your take on Venus versus Mars?
Um, from afar, you can look at the track list from this album and go, Blueprint 3 may be the first album since the first Blueprint where Beyonce does not make an appearance on this album. But that's not true. She's not credited as a feature on this song, but Beyonce is doing the vocals on it. So she is on the album. And I actually really like this song. I really like all of the references he does throughout the first verses and the second verse. I really like it. I think it's like one of my favorites is Shorty's like, Pop, me and Big Pop was screaming, hit him up. I'm screaming, who shot you? Yeah. And so I love that back and forth of him picking like references and finding another reference to play off of it with in the first verse, and then in the second verse when he is, it's kind of like the breakup verse of him finding out she's not who he who he thought she was. Him going, we're not on the same page like I thought we were. I finished my breakfast. Shorty's out to lunch. We were both eating. I bet it's better than brunch. Shorty's like Pepsi. I'm the Coke man. And he does this Coke reference several times in the song. It's really cool. Or him. I really like the Yin Yang Twins reference he does later in the song. Was not expecting a window to the wall reference, but he does the start at the window, ended up the wall, yin to my yang. I skied off.
Me, I'm from the Apple, which means I'm a Mac. She's a PC. She lives in my lap. I freaking love that line.
Yeah, it's so good, man. Thought she was a truth, found out she was a cheater. Then he throws the takeover. He throws the takeover reference to the first album with we were supposed to take over, Carter bumping Ether.
Yeah, and supposedly the backstory of this is that it's supposedly a hypothetical relationship. I don't know if there's anyone been specifically mentioned here, but it starts off nice, turns turbulent, and ultimately fails. Yeah. So let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a great. Yeah.
There's just so many references throughout it, or him ending the song with fell for the Ponzi scheme. Damn, Shorty just made off.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you got to be quick on that one to get what he means, but that's awesome. That's a great line. This is what he told NPR. This is a good quote. Quote, I mean, a song on my first album was Ain't No N-Word. It was like This Careless Relationship. And then that went to Big Pimpin' in 99. And on that same album was a song called Song Cry. And then Song Cry became Bonnie and Clyde in 2004, which became Venus and Mars, my last album. So there's a steady growth in the conversations that's being had as it pertains to women as I grew, end quote. If you put it that way, put context to it, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I would have pieced those tracks together like that, but that works, right?
Yeah, I do think that this song and a few showed growth and just the way that he talks about relationships throughout his career, all the way up to 444, where he's having a real like adult conversation about relationships and his place and the demise of a relationship. Yeah, I think that this song absolutely shows a lot of his maturity as an artist.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let's see if we hit the one next. I'm going to guess and say that this next one is not your skip it. Track 11 is Already Home featuring Kid Cudi. This is Kanye back with No ID and Basker on production. 4 minutes and 29 seconds, which may be the longest song No, it's not the longest song. Actually, that was Empire State of Mind was the longest. So at 4 minutes 29 seconds. So we'll start with you. Let's get your take on Already Home.
I love Already Home. I feel like it's one of the best songs in the album. I really like the production on it. I love Kid Cudi on the vocals. I'm a big fan of the hook. Um, and I think these are some of his best verses. Like I feel like there are some songs on this album where I don't want to say he phoned it in on the verses, but it's not. It's not Hungry Jay that we're used to from early in his career. It's not. It's not him giving top level verses. Like even Blueprint 2. Like for whatever you would think of most of the songs on the album, he brought it on most of the verses. All of the verses on most of those songs are great. Um, this song, I feel like he brought some of his best verses.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And supposedly, well, not supposedly, this was the first time that Cuddy worked with Jay. But Cuddy also said that the chorus of this song was originally supposed to appear on a collaboration with Kanye. But I don't
Hmm.
know how farther it goes or how much farther it goes in that, what collaboration he's talking about. But no, I'm with you. I think it's, uh, and I don't know what the term is for it when a rapper goes to the same rhyme, or the same ending or the same sound multiple times in a row, and then he switches it and goes off to something else. But he hits already how many times in a row here? It's
Um,
like
yeah, he's just a great writer. He does
like
motifs a
11.
lot of times in his work, which motifs is like a big writer thing outside of writing music. Um, and he's done it several times in his career, like times with 22 twos where he would drop a two in every line, or 40 four four 44 fours where he would drop a four in every line. And he did that similarly here, where in the last verse he put already in every line.
Mhm.
And man, that last verse of this song is so good. Uh, there's also a point where he he subs a lot in this song, right? Because I think the message he's trying to get across of, I'm kind of done with beef. I'm not beefing with anybody. Anybody that's beefing with me, you know, we're done with that. We're moving on from that. The message of this album is progress, but he takes a lot of sub jabs at people in this song if you pay attention to it. The second verse is essentially people of him saying, like, basically, people want me to do the work for them. I put people on, but after I put them on, they want me to keep doing the work for them. And there's a there's a there's a nod to that in the first track of the album as well, with the Santa Claus bars, where he's
Yep.
basically like, you want to sit on my lap and I have to do all the work for you. I put you in a position to make money. I can't do the rest for you. I've done this and I'm going to get out the way. Or another way to look at it is him saying, all right, well, people are like, well, you've had your moment, you shined, get out the way so other people can shine. And he's like, no, I'm not in the way. We're I'm not in the way. I've already made it. I'm already big. I'm out of the way. I'm already home. You make your way there now. I'm out of the way. And I mean, he basically said that several times in the song.
He
Like,
does.
I'm not there. I'm not there anymore. I'm not the guy anymore. Like, it's your time. If I was in a way, I'm not in a way no more. What's your excuse?
I taught them about fish scale. They want me to fish for them. They want me to catch clean, then cook up a dish for them. All this just for them, or they got a diss for him. They want me to disappear
Which is
like
a
it's no
sub.
shit for them.
Which is a sub for Beanie Siegel, I think, because at the time, he was no longer doing Rockefeller, and Beanie Siegel had issue with him because he felt like he left him high and dry. Like he 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 wasn't doing as much for his career as he could. But I think in Jay's point of view, he's like, well, no, I put you in a position to be a millionaire. I helped you out as much as I could. At some point, your career is in your own hands.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, the first parts of that line is absolutely subs. It's hilarious, but I love that verse. But the part where he's just like, we're not in the same league, don't suit us the same baskets, not in the same bracket.
Oh, it's a great line. Yeah, we don't shoot the same baskets. That's the best line ever. Not insanely don't shoot the same basket. Don't pay the same taxes, hang with the same. Yeah, yeah,
What is it I'm missing?
yeah. And dude,
Oh,
the best I think the best line of the song is the summation. That's the best line. I don't know who you racing. I'm already at the finish line with the flag waving. That's great.
or where he addresses the critics and he's like, "After the critics tell me I don't get it. Everybody can tell you how to do it. They never
They
did
never
it.
did it. It's
Oh, they
great.
call me a camel,
Yeah.
but I mastered the drought. What the fuck? I'm an animal." I love that line because that has been a jab at Jay his entire career. That people that will either get at him at his physical appearance and say he looks like a camel, and this is the first time I've ever heard him address it on song and say, "Oh, they call me a camel, but I mastered the drought. What the fuck? I'm an animal." Such a great line.
Hard to believe that he addressed it. I guess why not at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, his verses in this are just so great. I mean, um, yeah, like we said, with verse 3 when he starts with the "I'm in the hall already, on the wall already, I'm a work of art, I'm a Warhol already."
That's a great line. Yeah. Yeah. I done cooked up the rock already. So why the F can't y'all get hot already? That's great. Comparing to Biggie and Pac already. Like I'm gone already. That's awesome.
Already, like
Yeah.
his ad libs in that verse are hilarious too. When he's coming behind his own verse and going already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Already Home, man. I think it's one of the best songs on the album.
That's a fun tune. Um, number 12. I think I found it. We're going to see if I found it. Number 12 is the shortest song on the record. This is 2 minutes, 31 seconds. This is Hate featuring Kanye, who, yes, is also in the production along with Bosker. Is Hate your skip song?
It is not. I actually really,
Oh,
I actually really like Hate, and
yeah.
I really like Hate because Kanye's verse at the beginning is so good. The how much they hate it, very. Kiss girls like Katy Perry. I am never sprung, but I springer, Jerry.
Yeah.
I love it. The don't try this at home. Results may vary. King like he, I, but in the shy, Larry. And then Jay finishes his line in his verse, and I think that this just shows how much they have grown together and just how much chemistry they have together on verses now. I mean, on records now. Um, this felt like you could track this back and say that this kind of was like the precursor for what they do on Otis because their verses and their back and forth is very similar on that song. Um, but yeah, I feel like this song absolutely paved the way for what we got in Watch the Throne and some of their other collaborations. Um, and across the board on this album, you could just see how big of an influence that Kanye was on Jay since the first Blueprint. I feel like that diminished a little bit on the second Blueprint. Um, but as we talked about when we talked about the first Blueprint, just how much Kanye's sound was important to that album. But it's not just now that I feel like Kanye's was important to this album, but I feel like you can see how working with Kanye has changed Jay as an artist. I mean, Kid Cudi is a big Kanye protege. So working with Kid Cudi, that's absolutely some of Kanye's influence. Um, just some of Kanye's touches, whether it be production and his verses on this album, they were a big part of it. There's another song on this album where he worked with a pretty big Kanye collaborator, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album. So yeah, I feel like at this point we're getting to the point in 2009 where Kanye is coming to his own, and he's close enough to be considered an equal in some ways.
Yeah. And, I would think maybe I don't know, the hater part of this would it be monotonous for somebody and cause them to skip it? I like this tune, honestly. I'm not gonna say I don't ever skip it, but it's not a one I automatically skip every time for sure. Um, and as I said at the beginning of this one, I don't really skip anything if I'm being real. I mean, I like this as well. And honestly, it just sounds like he and Kanye are having fun on this tune, doesn't it? It just sounds like they're having a blast doing this one.
Yeah, yeah, I really like their chemistry on this. It like I said, when I listen to it now, it's like, oh yeah, this you could definitely see how they came from this and recorded Otis.
Yeah, and he even gives Gail Sayers a shout out. I mean, you gotta love that. You're a
Yeah,
Chicago guy. You gotta love that. So
yeah. There are several Chicago nods throughout the song. The Larry Hoover nod is a Chicago nod.
yeah,
There's a few callbacks in here. But yeah, I like Hate. I I even like the sample and the production on it. Um, yeah, I like Hate.
yeah, it's a good tune. And I'm not a huge Kanye guy, never have been, but I enjoy this song. Um, Track number 13, 4 minutes and 18 seconds. And man, there's a lot of song here for 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Timbaland and J Rock are back on production. This is Reminder. And talk about a hook they just play incessantly and just hook it around and around and around 1,000 times in the song. And we'll see if that causes either one of us to dislike it. Um, I could skip this or I could listen to it, and it depends on what mood I'm in. Some days the Reminder and then Jay going after every time she says it doesn't bother me, and then other days I'm like, yeah, I can't take this anymore, and I skip it. So, what's your take on Reminder?
I absolutely hate Reminder. I
Oh,
I
there's the skip.
I don't like Reminder. It's the only song on the album I don't like.
Wow.
And it's not so much his verses. I don't like the sound of it. I think tonally it doesn't work for me. Uh I hate the hook. The hook is so repetitive and annoying. And like you said, Jay doing his ad lib over the hook. Ah, it's so annoying. I really really don't like Reminder. And the verses aren't bad, but like there's this corny part in it where he's doing like this clueless reference and he's saying as if, and I hate it. It's just not a good song in my opinion.
Yeah, all rhymers with Alzheimer's line up, please. Um, all mammies with mind freeze, please line up, please. All bloggers with comments, please. I come in peace. Let's see if we can kill your amnesia by the time I leave. I mean,
Man,
some of
and
the
I
raps are good.
I mean, and look, I like the first verse quite a bit. I like a lot of the first verse, but once it gets to that hook, I'm tapping out. I'm tapping out every time. And I even there's a part of the second verse I like. Um, but yeah, it's the hook. I just don't like the hook. The hook just drives me nuts.
Yeah. Um, let's see. In a 2011 interview with Fuse on the eve of his 9/11 benefit concert, Hove explained why he, as the Michael Jordan of rap, chose to respond to those sitting on the bench. Quote, "I almost took the record off the album because of that specific reason. I was reading a book the other day, and the lines that were blaring to me said the truth needs no explanation. I was like, man, if I had read that 2 days before, you would never have heard it." End quote.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the reason why I don't feel that it fits the album as well, because I feel like that he spends a lot of the album basically saying that I've already progressed forward and I don't really need to tread backwards or punch down at people. And I feel like Reminder kind of defeats the purpose of what he does on Already Home, with him basically saying like I've already done it. I've already been there and done that. But by the way, here I have to remind you guys of everything I did. No, you don't.
Right, right.
that was
We
kind of
got it.
that was kind of the purpose of the rest of the album.
Sure. And this is Karen Briscoe on the hook that you hate,
Yeah.
that you
Oh,
hate to hate.
yeah. I think her singing on it doesn't sound good. I think
Nah.
the pitch she chose on it is just it's grating.
10 number one albums in a row. Who better than me? Only the Beatles, nobody ahead of me. I crush Elvis in his blue suede shoes. Made the Rolling Stones seem sweet as Kool-Aid too. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there are parts of the second verse I really like, but it's just the song as a whole. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, I could take this one or leave it. I don't skip it every time, but I have been known to skip it a time or two.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a definite skip for me most of the time.
well, I'm glad we found it. I mean, it's cool that we found it that deep into the album. You've enjoyed the album to that point, but then you're okay with the last two. So
Yeah, I initially thought Reminder was going to grow on me, but every time I listen to it, I just still don't like it.
I've done that. I've give songs a chance, and then like at the end, I can't come around on it. Track 14 is So Ambitious featuring Pharrell. The Neptunes are on production on this, of course. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. This is an odd song for me because like I like the song, but the verses are like, oh, like just raw. You know what I mean? So like some of the stuff that he's rapping about is or singing or that Pharrell's singing about is pretty, you know, pretty in there. But like the hook that he comes back to is the motivation for me is them telling me what I could not be. Oh well, I love that. That's awesome. But then some of the verses are like, what does he say about twins? What I'm trying to find the line here. But what's your take on So Ambitious?
I love So Ambitious. I really like the production on it. I love the hook on it. I think Pharrell is great on the hook. Um, they have very few misses together, him and Pharrell.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
like I feel like that combo of Neptune's on production and Pharrell on the hook and Jay doing a verse, like they very rarely miss. And I really enjoy the song. I I love that this is essentially him doing housekeeping in some ways. What I compare it to is Jordan's Hall of Fame speech, if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, I got here, but at the same time, I'm going to address all of these people that were telling me I would never make it here, or this guy that cut me off this team. And, you know, it comes off as petty in some ways, but at the same time, it's like his victory lap.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the line I came back to is I might hit two sisters. Hey, I'm on a mission, no matter what the conditions. Forget personal issues. When you go what I've been through. Yeah, I mean it's not too raw. I described it as raw. It's not bad. I mean it's Pharrell has that bit about him though, man, that he can go there if he needs to. If he wants to go there in a song, he totally can. But the difference when he does it versus when some other singers do it, he can do it and it still sounds awesome because of his voice. You know what I mean? He can get away with that if he wants to. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really
Um,
enjoy this, man.
yeah, but I just love I love the message of the song as well. Of, you know, don't ever let anybody tell you can't do anything. You
Yeah.
know, let that, if they're telling you can't do it, let that be fuel that you can't do. And I mean, we've seen Jay do that his entire career. If somebody, you know, putting down something he did and then him coming back and rocked it. I mean, that's essentially the origin of him coming out and opening his set at Glastonbury with Wonderwall.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call. Yeah. Just when you think you got Jay figured out. That's what I love about him. Just when you think you got him figured out, he'll do something else. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just well, for lack of a better term, it's a reminder. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm still the best. You can't touch me.
Yeah, I think that on some levels too, um, the thing that I respect about him, even if I don't agree with all his choices, is his drive.
Yeah.
Like, even if you just look at him as this guy that sold drugs, and somebody was like, "Ah, well, you're never gonna make it past this age. There's no there is no end for this for you. You know, either you end up dead or in jail after selling drugs." And no, he's the guy that got out, and he's the guy that went and had a multi-million-dollar rap career, and then took it a step further and had an entire second career as a businessman. And I think on some levels, there's probably a part of America that would go, this rapper, you know, he's not gonna make it in some of the rooms that we are. And now I feel like some of the biggest businesses in the country have to allow him in the room.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at like stuff he's done with the NFL, for example, no, they have to have him in the room. They need him.
Well, I mean, he's established. He's flat out, um, been through the worst of it. He's established now. Would never need to do another album. Would never need to rap again, but he could if he wanted to. I mean, he's God. I mean, most people just dream of getting to a position where they don't have to worry about anything again.
Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group.
Everyday Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. Like, that's where he's at. I mean, he's, crazy.
That's why I think the messaging of the song of saying that, I got past people telling me I couldn't do something to getting to a place where a lot of doors are not closed for me anymore. And you can't just say no to this guy anymore. You kind of need to accept his place in not just pop culture, but also just as, a business entity. Like you can't just look past it anymore. You have to acknowledge him.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Would you put Jay on the Mount Rushmore of greatest rappers of all time? Would you put him that far up?
Oh, for sure. I feel like he is one of the greatest rappers of all time. Even if you don't like his music, I feel like what he's done for the industry, you have to give him his credit for it. You have to give him his credit for the amount of time he stayed successful and relevant. That's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to stay as relevant as he is. I mean, this is 2022. He started his career in 1996.
Man.
Yeah. So, yeah, you have to applaud his longevity, if nothing else. Just the fact that he's managed to stay around this long. This guy is in his 50s and still rapping better than guys in their 20s.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Well, kids, we're getting ready to take this sucker home. If you can believe it, it took us like 2 days to get here. No, it really didn't. It was worth the trip, right, kids? Say yes. Track number 15 is Young Forever. This one, Kanye on production. Doesn't sound like a Kanye song per se, but that's because of the guest vocalist on this. 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Mr. Hudson. We have talked before, Phil, about guys that we didn't expect to be on a J single. And sometimes it works, like here. Sometimes it doesn't, like Lenny Kravitz, in our opinion. This works. I don't know why it works. I guess the tone of the song, the rhythm, I don't know. It just fits this guy's voice, and he sounds great, and it's smooth, and Jay's smooth next to him. And like, man, this track totally works for me. And this is going to sound morbid. This is one of those songs that you would expect in the funeral scene of a film, or like a flashback scene of someone that's passed. And it's not to say that it's dark. It's not. It's just, it evokes emotion for me personally. Like, it just does something for me. What's your take on Young Forever?
I love Young Forever, man. I think it's one of the best songs on the album. I honestly feel like it's one of his signature records at this point, because, man, there's so much emotion in this song to me, because I think there's a part of it as a fan of Jay that's been a fan for a very long time, and just seeing how far he's come in his career, just seeing just not just how far he's come as an artist, but just how far he's come as a man. And it's just to see him kind of look back in his career in this way on this song, even after retiring, is emotional. It's like, yo, he's really come this far, and like, I've really been a fan of this guy for almost his entire adult life. And just seeing, I don't know, just seeing how many phases of his career he's gone through, and just up to this point, and having somebody like Mr. Hudson on this record, and it sounding natural.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hudson's vocals on this are amazing. Sounds really good, especially on the opening to the song. He just sounds great. The hook is very good. I really enjoy the almost double entendre of the chorus of it, of him saying, in some senses, that, this is a guy that probably shouldn't be rapping anymore, because he's at this point in 2009. I can't remember how old Jay is, but he's what at most people would consider too old to be a rapper. And so this is him going like, nah, forever young in some ways. Like, you're only as young as you feel, which is a very old man way of thinking of it. And when you look at it, it's like, all right, well, yeah, Jay's old now. But the other part of it is, for a good part of his career, he would call himself Young Hove. And so
Yep.
it's also
Yep.
a way of saying, I'll forever be Jay. I'll forever exist as long as people keep me relevant, as long as my music is still played, as long as my um, personality and who I am is a big part of pop culture. I'll always be around no matter what. And I just think that it's such a beautiful idea for the song, especially to close this album. Um, and in a way to close the trilogy. It's just such a
Mm.
beautiful way to look at the journey of these three albums. Um, and I man the I've seen him perform this live, and I've seen he does this version of it with Beyonce at the end of the On the Run tour, where while it's playing, it shows all these things like his family life, like them having kids. It shows like their wedding and all these other things, and then it kind of cuts into this version of Halo with Beyonce, and it's so good, man. It's so touching, but at the same time, it's just like how far this man has come. Like, to think of the guys that made, I don't know, Big Pimpin' or Girls, 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 and to be this guy that is like married and happy and, in such a different stage of his life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack. Well, with what you said, there's a lot to unpack. Some great points, but a lot to unpack with this song, dude. You said it perfect when you said it's the best way to close out this album. He knows how to start an album. He knows how to close it too, because this song flat out sounds like the last song on an album. Like, it's it's crazy. I mean, it fits. The lyrics, fear not, die, I'll be alive for a million years, bye-byes, are not for legends, I'm forever young, my name shall survive. Through the darkest blocks, over kitchen stoves, over Pyrex pots, my name shall be passed down to generations. That one line, kitchen stoves over Pyrex pots, if you've ever been in a kitchen, you know what a Pyrex pot is. So like that immediately grounds the song for me and makes it real. He has a really good way of making a track real and making you connect with it. And I don't know how he manages to do that a lot for me. But man, I connected to that. Just that it was a very visual image, just a silly little image, but I connected to it automatically. But man, he hits
Double
every
entendres
note here.
again. Double entendres again of him
Yes.
eliciting the response of, in kitchens and in barbershops he'll be talked about, but then also the double entendre of the Pyrex, and of course that is another drug reference of, he'll be what he did as a drug dealer and making it and making it out will forever be legend as well.
Mm, well done. Yeah, well done. That's yeah. I mean, I don't know how else we could close out this episode, close out with the last track of the song, obviously, but it's perfect. Um, yeah, that's great stuff. Well, kids, there's the Blueprint 3. We have officially finished the trilogy. You're welcome. We got you there. Hope you've enjoyed it. Um, man, this was my favorite Blueprint episode. I still love the first album. Don't get me wrong. It's got a different feel to this one, but I still prefer part 3 over part 1. Um, I know we've touched on this a lot already. We talked about how good this album is. I mean, well, I'm gonna narrow you down here and forget Jay-Z albums. In terms of greatest rap albums of all time, if it's you doing the countdown, where do you put this personally? Is it in your top 20?
I don't know if it's in my top 20. I rank it pretty high because I enjoy this album a lot. Um, I definitely think that it deserved all the accolades it got in 2009. It was considered one of the best albums of the year, and I definitely agree with that. I think the thing that Jay managed to do with this that he couldn't do early in his career all the time because he was so linked to, street culture and all these other things that everybody is not going to understand the references. Um, I feel like Blueprint 3 works it because it's more accessible than a lot of his other catalog. You can make the
Hmm.
argument that Blueprint 3 is more accessible than any of the other Blueprint albums. I feel like you can play Blueprint 3 for anybody and they don't have to understand everything, but there's so much here where it's just good music.
I'll totally take that. In fact, that's a great way of putting it, man. Easily accessible. Because, dude, you're right. There's some albums, not just Jay, but a lot of artists that you have to kind of be invested in that guy, or you kind of have to be invested in the theme of, or you kind of have to know what came before. It's like, how do you go into a movie trilogy and watch part 3 first? Most people don't do that. But like you said, you could watch, you could listen to Blueprint 3 first and not really feel like you missed anything.
Yeah, and I feel like he's so brash on the first Blueprint. He's coming in, he's beefing, he's he, he's talking trash, and so I feel like this album is kind of different. I feel like this album there's a lot more warm ideas on it. It's not it's it's not as it's not what most people would consider rap music. I mean, it's definitely still rap music, but I understand what people mean when they say that he came into his own on this album as kind of an elder statesman, where he can make grown up rap music, um, and it still works.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and, again, kids, will remind you there's 8 years between Blueprint 1 and Blueprint 3. So, yeah, plenty of time for him to not get accustomed to where he is, but to get comfortable maybe in his ability. And I think that's the Jay we got here. Um, so let's attempt to put a button on this, Phil, and give me your last word on the Blueprint 3.
Um, Man, I feel like it is kind of one of the most underrated J albums. Because I think at this point in his career, people expected so much from him, but there are so many quotables from this album that I quote all the time. Um, yeah, I mean, prime example, uh, just recently when Cody Rhodes left AEW, one of the quotes I took from the album is that Cody was like, "I don't get dropped, I dropped the label."
Well said. Yeah, well said. It's a very quotable album. Jay's quotable anyway, but you're right. This album is highly quotable. Um, this is my favorite Jay Z album, and that's tough. That's really tough. But I mean, well, ask me tomorrow, I might change my mind. But today, this is most definitely, and honestly, it's one that I can listen to, and it never gets old to me. After all this time, it probably never will. Um, we always typically go out of these shows recommending something to you kids. So if you are a Jay Z fan, I'm sure you already appreciate the Blueprint 3. If you're on the fence or you're not familiar, you just listen to this show for the sake of listening to it. Trust us when we tell you this album is worth a spin. Okay. So drop the needle. These are old references, but you get what I'm saying. This is a good album, kids. You got to check it out. It's definitely worth your time. And for my money, one of Jay Z's best. And yeah, dude, I'm still that guy that is hoping that one day we'll get this amazing, stellar 5-star Jay Z. Man, where'd this come from? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But if anybody could pull it off, it's him. But I
Maybe
don't
like
know.
another album.
I mean, I know he's still going, but I don't know. I don't keep up with the stuff in recent years. I haven't kept up with a lot of it.
I,
Um,
I think 444 is one of his best albums. I think that's his last studio album is 444. That
I
came out
like it. I
in
like it. I just don't.
2016, right?
I like it. I don't
2017.
love it. No, I get it. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that's one of his best albums. I feel like it's definitely one of his best post retirement albums, and like I feel like this is another one. Like I feel like that first album out the gate after retirement, there was a little rust, but I feel like he really got back into his own, and with American Gangster and this album, and yeah, I feel like he's dropped better albums post retirement.
Do we get a Jay Z Super Bowl halftime show?
Um, I
Just
don't
Jay.
know. I
Just
don't
Jay.
know. You know, he turned him down at one point because he was offered it, and he said he didn't want to do
Oh.
it. Um, but I think if you've ever seen him at a stadium show, he's amazing.
Hmm.
And I've seen him at several stadium shows. When I saw him with Beyonce on the Run tour, that was in the stadium. It's in Soldier
And you know
Field.
what? If he ever says yes, they'll ever produce it, and they'll have 50 people dancing, and they'll have lights and pyro and fireworks. I say put the dude on stage with a live band like he had at Glastonbury, and just let him jam, and just let him do what he wants, and walk the ramp back and forth, and just own it. I don't think you need to do a lot for his presentation. I think he'd kill it. I know he would.
Yeah. I mean, I think he would do. I think he'd do well. I think he'd do all his own songs. He'd have all the guests and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think he'd have a great Super Bowl halftime show. But for whatever reason, I know that he didn't agree with some of the stuff with like the kneeling and stuff, and that's part of why he stepped away. But also, they don't get paid for halftime shows, and this is the genius of Jay-Z again, where I said with
Ah.
with football, he was like, no, 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 no. I'm not just an artist. You can tell them, hey, you got to come to us for free publicity, and you pay us. No, 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 no. You got to pay me. You got to pay me to be on the board and actually consult.
I can't fault him for that at all.
Yeah, that was a controversial decision, by the way. I remember when people were saying, "Oh, well, he said that kneeling stuff is done. We got to move forward and we got to figure out what to do next." And agree with him or disagree with him, there's something to be said about where he came from,
Yeah.
and coming from nothing, and being a black guy that can't sit in a room and say, "No, no, no, you guys have to listen to me. You need me. You have a problem. I can help you fix that."
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. That takes me back to his journey, man. The journey, everything he's been through, how he got to this point. I don't begrudge anyone their success, kids. It's not a good look. This guy worked hard to get what he has. And yeah, I'm always interested to see what's going to happen next. I don't think he's done. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe 444 is the last thing we'll hear from him in a studio
I
setting,
mean,
but
he's dropped verses since then that were amazing. Yeah, that his
yeah.
verse on "What's Free," he did that verse, and I listened to it the day that song came out, and I was like, "This man is 50. He shouldn't be still rapping like this." But yeah, his verses on that J Electronic album, he still got it if he wants to do an album, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has songs that he's worked on. But I don't know if we get another album anytime soon.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Wait and see what happens. But hey, kids, in the meantime, you got 3 Blueprint albums. And you got 2 really good Blueprint albums. So there you go. Anyway, yeah. But as we always say, kids, enjoy what you have, and we'll see what happens down the road. But as for now, that is the Blueprint 3. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.